It's kind of like, you know,
that is
the Sundance Kid.
It's two guys that have known each other since the age of 11, and truly brothers. Couldn't live with each other, couldn't live without each other, and Doug wouldn't be Doug without Augie. Augie wouldn't be Augie without Doug. It's that simple.
Well, what do you think they brought to each other? You know what I mean? Like, what was how did the puzzle pieces fit together? Is that too complex a question?
Well, you know, it's like Larry Campbell was saying that Augie was a mellowing influence on Doug, and he would show up and Doug would calm down. You know, he wouldn't be so jacked up sometimes, just because Augie was Mr. Reliable. And similarly, Augie has had quite a career on his own.
Yes, he has.
And playing with others, including Bob Dylan. But Augie's never been full Augie without that Vox organ and with Doug with him. I mean, it's a band sound. It's the Sir Douglas Quintet would not be the same.
Yeah, they really do complete each other. And Lewis and Don, you guys can grab mics right there behind you if you haven't already. Oh, you have already. So, Joe, maybe you can clear this up. Probably a lot of aspiring. I think everybody's got a documentary that they want to make in them, like stuff that you see where you go, hey, that would make a good documentary. But easy to say, not so easy to do. So when you first had this idea, and you've written a lot of books about Tejas-centric subjects, Selena and the Dallas Cowboys, probably the definitive Willie Nelson biography. You're ready to step into your first filmic foray. Why Doug Sahm, for one thing?
Well, Doug was my guy. I mean, Lewis has told this story, and we were two years off having the same experience coming to Austin and hearing this guy, and it's like, man, this is it. And Doug was that constant throughout his life. For me in Austin, I mean, he was the guy. And it was not just listening to him play, it was hanging with him. It was calling softball games at South by Southwest. It was talking music. And he would always turn you on to stuff. It was not just the typical being a member of the audience in a performer deal. He was really, he broke down that barrier. And he always did. And Jan Reed did a wonderful book on him in 2007-8. My feeling was Texas Tornado.
Yeah.
For someone that had been dead 15 years, words won't do it. And especially considering most people don't know who Doug Sahm is. Thank you all, because you are Doug Hens and Groovers.
Well, some are. I mean, how many people are having their first exposure to Doug Sahm tonight, or didn't know that much about Doug Sahm? So it's not just Doug.
But see, that's the big goal, I think, of probably any documentary film, is you want to reach the people that aren't familiar with the subject. And that's the bigger goal, and really, no kidding, because of the movie, and because you can hear his music, and you can hear him and get an idea of who he was, I really think it's our best chance to get this guy in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It ain't bullshit. All I'm going to say is last year, Stevie Ray Vaughan got in, which was way overdue. Last year, more telling, Paul Butterfield Blues Band got in. And I like to think that we're kind of sitting in the same zone. Paul Butterfield may not have, I don't know how many platinum albums he did with the blues album, but that isn't what counts. What counts is what kind of impact, what kind of influence. And you can see who this guy was, although we only scratched the surface. There's a lot.
That's true. I was thinking while I was watching the film that any one of these people in the movie could have a documentary made about them. You know what I mean? You could do a Freddie Fender documentary, a Flaco Jimenez documentary. You could do an Augie Meyers documentary, and it would be great. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Can you guys get the funding? I think we can do it. So, I want to talk to you, Lewis. Like, what was your first exposure to Doug? Like when you first, when did Doug Sahm first enter your consciousness?
Well, I started listening to Doug long before I saw, the first time I saw Doug is kind of a well-framed story. I had been listening to Doug forever, and I lived in Vermont for a while, and during the winter we would just sit around the record players and listen to Doug's albums over and over again, because we were just discovering American music, and every one of Doug's songs was a key that opened 6 doors to American music. And this was after Sir Doug, it was 2+2 and some of the, and Hunky Tonk Blues, I think, some of those albums. But then I came to Austin. I drove down in a 1954 Chevy Deluxe, Thanksgiving weekend, 1974, and we got a copy of the local underground paper, ironically, and I started the Austin Chronicle sometime later. And there was an ad for Doug playing at Soap Creek Saloon, this little honky tonk out in the hills. And we were like so ecstatic, like Doug Sahm in person. And so we got real lost, because it was, I mean, now this is like downtown Austin, it's all developed. But
Right.
then we were out in the middle of nowhere. We missed the turnoff, and we came back and found it, and we're going down this road, and it's like the beginning of a horror movie, this dirt road into nowhere.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. And then also we saw cars parked on both sides, so we parked, and we walked down, for a while, and there's this little shack, and we get there and the door opens and it's like entering into the world of Gilbert Shelton, like it explodes.
Wow.
It's like a Disney moment. This big fat guy at the door.
This way to the Fabulous Freak Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. And inside was Billy Bob, yeah. And inside was like unbelievable, life. And then Doug comes out, and it's like, I said this in the movie, I'm leaning there with a 75-cent rum and coke, and I'm leaning back, and I'm like 25, and for the first time in my life I said, oh, I'm home, this is where I'm supposed to be, because this music it's been in me, I've been, it's there, and this is the music I want to follow. And the hardest part about this film was, I produced a film about Townes Van Zandt called Be Here to Love Me, a film about Townes Van Zandt. And with Townes, you got Pancho and Lefty, you got If I Needed You. I mean, you have a moment where you can do White Frank Liner. I mean, there are songs that you can just present and you can kind of begin to get who Townes was. The problem with Doug was, in the evening, you're seeing the best set you've ever seen, and it's 5 or 6 songs into it, and you think, okay, it doesn't get any better it couldn't get any better than this. And then came the next song, and you realize this guy wasn't even getting started yet.
He kept shedding scenes right in front of you.
He was about to take off. And then it would just be like, so many times the best band in the world playing anywhere was the band, and that Doug Sahm was leading. And some nights was a country band, some nights was a rock band. And I saw him once on a particularly dreary Christmas Eve playing with the West Side Horns and doing jazz in a little Austin club, and they were just brilliant. I mean, there was nothing like it. And so capturing that in the movie, that was what was really of the hardest part, was because, the importance of Doug is he's an amazing band leader, he's a brilliant musician, and he's the Energizer Bunny. He doesn't just keep on going, he takes off.
Well, I would guess that even without the 75-cent rum and coke, that first time would have been awesome.
We were ready. No, I mean, it was, and Soap Creek was like, we saw him there so many times, and it was like, one of the great privileges of my life was I got to know Doug. I mean, when we talked about, at that point in time, we studied record albums. Like, we would read, every bit of information on the record album. And on Doug's albums, every song, if it wasn't written by Doug, you went to find out who that songwriter was. Because it was a treasure trove. It was literally
send you
a map.
on a little spelunking journey somewhere to find this stuff.
Right. And you'd be over somebody's house who you hadn't met before, and they would have one of these albums, and you'd like rudely push them aside. I once almost got thrown out because somebody had a couple of the Chess Blues albums that had some of the stuff that Doug had covered. And I walked through the record, they took off what they were playing, because I'd been waiting to hear this for, I mean, they must have understood.
And Dead Sea Scrolls being handed to you. Don, I want to ask you, so you got this idea, you love Doug Sahm, obviously, you've written these books, you thought that he couldn't be contained in a book or described in a book to the right effect. So how do you, what's your next step? What do you do? I mean, of course you want to make a documentary about Doug Sahm.
The first thing I did first was to go to Shawn Sahm and talk to Shawn and Cheryl, knowing that they had a museum on hands, and they were the keeper of knowledge. And once that green light came on, sure, I was lucky enough to hook up with Arts and Labor Production Company, and that's where Don came in.
Now, is that a nonprofit?
No, that's not a nonprofit. We formed the Society for the Preservation of Texas Music as our nonprofit, but it's through this production company, which is a great film production company and basically incubator in Austin. in that they have a lot of people that are associated with arts and labor. And so Don inherited this great unwashed numbnuts that thought he had a great idea for a movie.
You might be a numbnuts, but you are not unwashed.
But I knew nothing about film, so Don was the translator from the get-go.
Wow, yeah. Dawn, so speak to that. So you're the translator. What? So this guy comes to you, and what's your first thought?
Well, my first thought was that I've been wanting to make a film about Doug Sahm for about 10 years before that. And I'd actually started like compiling research. I was living in LA. I lived in LA for like a year. And I was so homesick that I was listening to Doug Sahm, and like a lot of his lyrics are about living in California and being homesick for Texas. And I really identified with that. And I was like, I'm gonna make a documentary about Doug Sahm. And this was 10 years ago, and it never happened, obviously. And then, I don't know, 10 years later, I get this call that we're making a documentary about Doug Sahm. Yes. And I dug my original pack of research out of my attic, and I had all these articles written by Joe Nick Patoski.
Okay.
So anyway, so what was the question?
I'm just trying to figure out how the documentary happened from like, from this Jughead guy who has knowledge but has never made a movie to it being a movie that killed it tonight.
We were all so excited to make it, and so we formed this nonprofit and we raised the money through that, and we all got together and we did it, and it was only like with the help of Shawn's wife Cheryl that we were able to put it together. And I don't know, I would put one foot in front of the other, and I can't believe it actually happened, but it did.
It's pretty beautiful. Now I have a question. This was something I scrolled down as I was watching the film. Why isn't Willie interviewed in the film? You know, Doug was so instrumental, right? I mean, you kind of kept waiting for that Willie Nelson interview, and I don't know if there's a story there or not. Is this uncomfortable territory? I hope so.
No, but it's semi-uncomfortable, but it's for the same reason Bob Dylan's not in there. And that's my short answer. No, but Willie does have a Jewish manager. I will put that. No, we made several attempts, and a lot of it was bad timing because someone had gone to make a documentary and got in and played poker with Willie and lost $5,000 to Willie. And Willie was very accommodating until his manager heard about it and hit the wall. It was like, no documentaries, period. So I tried to call in favors. I tried every which way.
Yeah, if anybody can navigate those layers of gatekeepers,
there are so many layers that I can't encourage our production team. Fine, you guys go at him. There are 15 different ways to get to Willie.
We tried 20 different ways.
And we shook most of them down, but it just didn't work out. And it's the same reason we've been wanting to get Dylan the whole time. And that didn't work, but we did over 55 talking head interviews. You saw maybe 20. And, each one was an hour plus. I don't know what we're going to do with them. Some were beautiful. And again, I'd love to watch. I want to go watch Dr. John Raw again because it was such a good interview with Dr. John, and he was riveting. But during the whole interview, given the factors that were involved with Dr. John, I kept expecting someone to bust the door down with guns held and saying the jig's up and they were gonna hold us up or cancel everything because it was that dicey in getting Dr. John. But I'd love to be able to show all those, but they didn't all work with the way the story unfolded, and that's why there's a lot of phases of Doug's life. You can't cram them into a movie.
That's why God invented DVD extras.
Well, if we can make it a week long, we'll be fine. And I'll be happy.
Well, one of the people that you mentioned there, and kind of, one of the heroes of the Doug Sahm story is Huey Moe, the crazy Cajun, who, first saw the potential in Doug or heard it and Augie and all that, and put out those great records that got the whole ball rolling. But hopefully this isn't too uncomfortable for you. But there was, I don't know how many of you people know this story, but Huey Moe, the crazy Cajun, this legendary record man, sometime was in the mid-90s, I guess, maybe?
It was 1995.
Yeah, it turned out that he had this long secret history of, really sordid sex crimes with underage females, really ugly stuff. And you wrote a great article that I remember reading in the Texas Monthly about how just how you know this guy, and he was kind of somebody you really, this character that you kind of respected and sort of thought was funny and entertaining, and had this ear and was kind of this. But then there's this whole other thing that you didn't know about that kind of gobsmacks you, right?
I knew he was bad. I mean, did he misbehave? I didn't know to that extent. And I thought I was going to learn the truth and get him off. And instead, the cover story, I think it was in April '95 in Texas Monthly, is Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And it's Huey's mugshot on the cover. And I finally got him on the cover of Texas Monthly. I mean, I think he wasn't appreciative of it, though. And I did learn later on, Huey's passed since. Did
you interview him for the movie post jail sentence?
No, that was all done in when he was donating his papers to the University of Texas in 1985. And so I interviewed him. He was my friend, but I learned later that I had reason to fear for my life when he was in prison. He did a lot of convenient blame. He didn't do the crime. It was this writer that wrote about him that did the crime.
Right.
That kind of thing. So it was kind of a drag, but redemption is redemption here. Huey deserves all the credit in the world for doing what you saw here, and I still think it's one of the great moments of rock and roll. That is rock and roll of all things. Dress someone up and y'all like English and do that, and they're doing nothing but playing a San Antonio polka, and they sell themselves the world. And what I learned from that was Doug might have been the epitome of artifice then, but he learned so many lessons from Huey of what not to do as well as what to do, and he never let anyone do to him what Huey did. Doug made those decisions on his own. So if he's going through different looks in Sweden or whatever, that was Doug's deal. But he learned from Huey, and Huey was an invaluable teacher because you don't have college in that part of the music business.
Well, I guess rock and roll has always been equal parts, real soul and total hucksterism, right?
Yeah.
And I think finding the right, the right mix of that is kind of dicey sometimes. Do you think at the end, with the tornadoes and all that stuff, do you think Doug was pretty much at peace with his status as like a huge cult guy as opposed to a rock and roll star that could fill giant stadiums, or was he embittered?
He wasn't embittered, but he was always about what was next. It wasn't what he had done, it was what he was gonna do. It wasn't the music he had made, it was the music he was gonna make. And it was gonna be different. I mean, he never stayed, again, I think he would have been a huge star if he was like about a third as talented as he was, but he was not gonna stay in one place. He was just gonna keep on going. I don't never recall him being embittered, and I never recall him being anything but like enthusiastic. Occasionally, like you can play, the punks don't play softball. Why don't the punks play? I wish they came out for the ball.
Yeah, the kids with the purple hair.
Yeah, I like their music's okay, but why don't they come to the ball? but that was the most I heard of him.
He wasn't a navel gazer, which this was really hard to find audio of him talking about himself in the past, because it's like Lewis said, and this is Huey talk. He's always hyping the next thing, what you're supposed to be excited about. It's like talking about, well, hey Doug, what was it like back when you were working with Dylan or something like that? You never want to talk about
Not a rear view mirror guy.
Not a navel gazer. Always moving forward.
So Doug, Doug born in 1941 maybe, right? Something like that? So what would he be, like 70, probably mid-70s now? 41? So he would be what, 74, 75 years old now?
It's a year younger than Augie. Augie's 75.
Yeah, so, what do you think that a mid-70s Doug Sahm would think of this film if he was able to sit in the theater and watch it? Would he like it? Would he hate it? Would he walk out? Would he think it was awesome?
He'd be playing at a club down the block.
In the Kibitz room.
Be a kid.
Joe, would you ever, knowing what you know now, would you ever tackle the documentary game again? And what would you make a film about?
Yes, and there's a lot of ideas floating around, and some of the subjects we've been talking about tonight are those. It's like anyone in the band. My friend Nick Tosha saw it, and he said, you need to do Huey. And Huey may be a little too much kryptonite, but he's a fascinating story, and it's just like, it's raw, and it's not, there's nothing about education, it's pure instinct. But that's when the music, what was left of the music business, that's when the music business was exciting. When you
Yeah.
had people like Independence.
It had kind of a carny
making that-
feel to it.
Very
It was-
carny.
Yeah.
Well, that's Doug, baseball, softball, and wrestling. And I say wrestling.
He was so far ahead of the Lucha Libre thing that you're
Yeah.
hip now. You
No,
know what I mean?
and so all
Like
I'm
the Texas
saying is-
Mavericks wore Lucha Libre masks. Like that was way before that was cool. Not like every Hallmark store has a whole bunch of new Lucha Libre cards, birthday cards and stuff.
He was into old-fashioned entertainment, and those were his peers. I mean, those were people he looked up to in wrestling. Jose Lothario and Doug were like this, and Jose was a famous South Texas heel, and he counted many baseball players as his friends, and that's because it was like what he did, but it was different, and I think that really appealed to him.
Go Tarzan Lopez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we have some people in the audience that I just want to have stand up and take a bow that were in the film. Doug's daughter, Dawn Sahm, is out there somewhere. Legendary record man, Warner Brothers label guy, Bill Bentley. Anybody else? I'm sorry, because I wasn't told.
Shawn and Cheryl.
Yeah, I know. I'm leading up to that. And we're going to get some Q&A from you in the audience until they kick us out of here. We okay, Adrian?
Yeah, we got like 10-15.
We got 10:15. So I'm going to bring up a guy that probably knows Doug better than most people. Member of the Sir Douglas Quintet. Member of the Texas Tornadoes, current leader of the Texas Tornadoes, also happens to be the son of Mr. Doug Sahm. Can you come on up here, Shawn? Shawn Sahm! Shawn Sahm! No, he didn't have money. Cool. Hey, Shawn.
Hey,
So,
John, what's happening, buddy?
how you doing, baby? Good
All
to see
right,
you.
darling, thank you.
I gotta say, a few years ago, the Texas Tornadoes, the Shawn version, played at my 50th birthday party, and it was the best birthday party ever. Some dive bar in Burbank, it was like the greatest.
We went from the Wavy Gravy show up in Mendocino County down to the Tom Kenny gig at the Mexican food restaurant. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, Viva Cantina.
Yeah, we were in Ray Vincent's boss. Yeah, we pulled it right behind the restaurant.
Oh, you guys pulled it. It was like the Blues Brothers, man. And speaking of that, I wanted you, talk about that. Like, the Doug Sahm and the Texas Tornadoes are so awesome that they may be the only supergroup that could survive the deaths of two of the major members and still come on and be a great fucking band. I mean, Freddie and Doug both passed away, and then they were dormant for a while, and you resuscitated the band. Like, how did that happen?
Well, you know what? It was a long, organic process, to be honest with you. I was more concerned with my family and all that kind of important stuff when you're mourning the loss of your father. But after you deal with the heaviness of it all, you start getting back, the feeling comes back, and you start missing the music. And, a lot of people may or may not, know this, but I was playing with my dad since I was a little kid. Like, y'all saw some clips up there of me on Austin City Limits. I was like 13 or 14.
And that famous Rolling Stone cover.
Yeah, I was like 8. No, not even that, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah. And we were talking earlier about how I'd go on tour. I made the Border Wave record with him when I was like 13. And my sister loves to tell the story about I'd be gone all the time, and the school would go, well, where the hell you been? I'd be, I'm out grooving with my dad, on the road. And they'd be like, well, you can't do that. You gotta, I was in like 5th grade or 4th grade, 5th grade or 6th grade. So
I've been hanging out with Rocky Erickson.
Sure, yeah, totally. We were, all the whole family were hanging out with Rocky Erickson, but that's a whole other chapter. But long story short, it's a very organic thing. Dad's music means a lot to our families. It's a very personal thing. But when we got together and did it, it was very natural. We didn't have to let's try to make this happen. Everyone, it just fell right in. And to end this, to kind of conclude so we don't go on too long, I think what makes my version of the Tornadoes work is that we embrace their past. I say every night on stage that you don't replace Doug Sahm and Freddie Fender, you celebrate them and you enjoy their music, and that's what we do every night. We just go out there and celebrate the legacy of
Well, and the record that you made since is a great record. That just kind of defies, reality and logic. But
thank you, Tom. Here's your $10.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail. You've heard that before, probably. Right?
This may be putting you on the spot, but I was raised my dad was like Ward Cleaver. Like, I grew up with total perfect. We leave it, a little.
So was mine, just on acid. I'm sorry, go next week. Go ahead. More Cleaver, go ahead.
Yeah, so you told me about the typical Sahm family Christmas once.
Oh, it's all in the book. The one thing I love about the Jan Reed book is, to me, all the things are important. You know, the DVDs, the books, the film. It's all little facets, little branches of the tree, right? And the one thing that's great about the book is, because Jan, you know, he was honest. He didn't really, you know a whole lot in depth about Doug. So it's really just me and George Raines and Augie and Speedy and my sister and my brother talking to him, you know. But real quickly, what he's referring to is in the book, in California, my dad was a full-on hippie hanging out with Owsley and, you know, all the acid cats and Grateful Dead guys. And so quickly, Christmas for us in the morning, we can, I can still see in my head, he'd be in his boxers, and we'd be all, you know, kids get up at 5 in the morning wanting to open presents, right? Well, he'd go running down the hall with a newspaper going, hold on, I got a groove. And he'd sit down, start rolling joints real quick, you know, and he'd sit there and he'd have to get high and groove, and then once he got high and groove, he'd go, let's do it, and we'd just go crazy.
You guys couldn't open your presents until he got high. Hold it, guys. Hold it.
Now, he would go, son,
Not yet.
Because we thought this was all beautiful. I mean, our family grew up as kind of hippies, and there was more love in there than you can imagine. It wasn't weird or politically correct crap or any of that, you know. And Dad would go, son, what do you think people would think about that? And I said, well, you know, they probably wouldn't get it or understand it. It's a little weird to look out, you know, from the outside in. But Dad was a very loving guy, and for as crazy and eclectic as he was, he could be very normal. And you know, he was very into the family and the grandkids. That's what he did with my sister.
Well, he's obviously a traditionalist.
He played chess with my brother Shandon. You know, he had a lot of different facets to him. But you know, we're just proud to celebrate him, and we want to thank Joe Nick.
Thank you guys for making this film.
And everyone, Bill Bentley, everyone who helped. And how about Tom Kinney, ladies and gentlemen? How about Mr. Tom Kinney?
I'm just the ringmaster. I think we still got a little more time. If anybody's got questions that they want to ask anybody, Dawn or Lewis or Joe Nick or even Shawn.
Hey, even Joe.
Got a question right here. All right, question about the old days in Austin, the early Coke FM days. Why would it be that Willie would get the play that Doug did not?
Doug got the play, but Willie ended up getting a whole lot more play. You know, it's 1975, important year. That was the year Willie did Red-Headed Stranger. He'd already done phases and stages previous, and then Shotgun Willie. 1975, Doug did Groover's Paradise and produced Rocky Erickson's first single with Lee Bailey and Starry Eyes and Two-Headed Dog. Groover's Paradise did nothing. They got an airplay in Austin along on Coke FM, but it had no resonance whatsoever. Red-Headed Stranger was a game changer for Willie. So that was where the two paths diverged. But in the early 70s, Doug was the old soul. He was the old soul in San Francisco. He was the guy that had hit records in the 60s among all the psychedelic bands. He had hits. And the same thing in Austin. He was the guy that not only had hit records, but he had come from San Francisco and come back to Texas, proving that it was okay to come back. Willie was considered a great country songwriter who had some country hits, but he didn't have top 10 pop hits. So even then, Doug was the old soul, and Doug was the old weed head then. Willie was just getting into weed then. By 75, Willie was on his way to becoming the patron saint of marijuana.
J.R. Chatwell turned my dad onto the whole...
Well, Chatwell,
really?
don't discount
He's an Adolf
Spot
Hitler.
Barnett, who used to sling dope. He had a trap door beneath the stage while he was playing his rhythm and blues.
Both of them. Dad said that J.R. turned him on to baseball and weed and all. They were spotted. They were both very, you know, at the same time period. Yeah, yeah. He used to play catch with J.R. and all that.
Wow. Cool. Anybody else? For our filmmakers?
Hey.
You may never get this opportunity again.
Back here, right there.
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
I thought the film was really funny. You know, that's like he was a very funny character. I'm glad you selected
But he's a funny guy. It made me laugh. Look, this is nothing but a payback for someone that gave, you know, gave me so much pleasure and that gave me so many good times. It's a real simple proposition. Just, you know, I want to recognize him because I think think the world of him today. And I want other people to know about him.
We're like kind of all a little sick to death of saying Doug Sahm and having people go Doug who, and especially when those people are in bands that wouldn't exist or make the music they make if there wasn't for Doug Sahm. So this whole thing is payback, and where like with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I asked my friend John Sayles if he would lend his name. He said, well, anything for Doug. But he goes, well, would Doug really want to go to Cleveland?
If there was a baseball game going on that day, he would have.
But it's not, I mean, I don't really care that much about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I
For
do
record
care.
sales, though, it is certainly
I do
important.
care about Doug's place in American music.
Yes.
And he is.
Not that the Doobie Brothers aren't awesome.
Exactly.
They're in there, right?
And this is like for all of us and everybody involved. This is a mission. This is a campaign. We want people to listen to Doug Sahm again.
So what is the campaign to get Doug into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? What can people do?
Actually, right.
Is there anything they can do?
We just finished the Kickstarter campaign to raise the money to finish the film last night.
Yeah, you guys, Don, you made your Kickstarter money to buy the music rights, right? To the film. When did that donut hole
Like
close?
about
Last
just a
night?
few hours ago.
Oh, give it up! This movie can be on DVD now and get theatrical release now?
We're hoping.
Cool.
We're working.
Congratulations. And thanks to anybody who contributed.
Yeah, and so in terms of, we're gonna, we'll do again is in a couple of weeks, we'll just begin a campaign. We're already reaching out to some of the nominated people, and we're gonna reach out to everybody we reached out to, like, Steve Earle and Donald Fagen and Delbert McClinton and Lyle Lovett and Robert O'Keefe and Joe Ely and on. Everybody said, yeah, use my name. We believe in Doug, and we kind of combine that campaign with the Kickstarter, raise the money so we could have the music rights. But now we're going to go back to really, it's kind of bizarre to try and get Doug into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because he deserves so much more.
It's also weird that you got to try so hard.
We're going to do it.
Yeah, but
He actually got on one time a couple years ago, but it was only like a first round kind of thing. His name popped up somewhere, and he got shut out pretty quickly.
First round draft pick.
One of those things. That's a good Doug reference right there.
So people want to sign the petition, they can go to our Kickstarter page.
That's what I'm getting
It's
at.
still up, and it's bit.ly, the bit.ly/Sir Doug. Or just go on to Google and put Sir Doug Film Kickstarter. And on that page, they do have a link where you can sign petitions. And that's kind of, we're glad we got the money where we can pay for this. But now we need names. We need a lot of names.
Phase 2. Time for phase 2 to start.
It never ends.
And we want musicians to cover Doug like crazy. I mean, there are already a lot who do, but we want even more. I got to take 1 second because we thank Bill Bentley, but when Joe Nick called me and asked me to get involved in this project, the first phone call I made was to Bill Bentley. Yeah, Bill Bentley.
His contributions are immeasurable to the Texas Tornadoes and just to Doug's career. He's been a good confidant and helped in a lot of facets.
Yeah.
It's immeasurable what Bill's done. We appreciate all your help, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a love fest for you, Bill. Sir, on the couch, you had a question.
Yeah, I wonder, what kind of influence did Doug have if he didn't end up in Austin? What would Austin be like today?
Ooh, Austin without Doug Sahm.
It'd probably be a lot more affordable.
All you need to know is Jerry Wexler came looking for Doug. And that was his first signing to his ill-fated Atlantic Nashville label. His second signing was Willie Nelson. And so had not those things not happened, who knows what Willie would be selling insurance.
It's like It's a Wonderful Life. It's like selling insurance in Pottersville. Yeah.
Freddie Fender would be a social worker. Freddie Fender would be a social worker.
Yeah.
Rocky Erickson would be institutionalized, and none of you would have heard of Steve Jordan.
Wow, that's an alternate Earth I don't want to visit.
And we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
So, in closing, be cool? Anybody else got a burning question they want to? They're going to kick us out of here. Sorry.
Not burning, but great film, guys. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Out the back? All right. We'll see you out in the back. Let's also thank Miss Tiffany Anders for putting on this crazy festival. Thank you, guys. And again, we are celebrating Doug Sahm. It's almost like a Texas Tornadoes gig tonight. There you go, buddy. Thanks, everybody.
Good job, Sean.